Welcome everyone. It is IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective, and the only news program in the world giving you practical spiritual advice for your everyday life. It is a really exciting day because we're talking about a theme that's very personal to my heart, animals and our furry friends and all the creatures of the world. So before we get going, remember to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, IKYA, at IKYA Official on YouTube. Also like this video and send it on to people because they can join anytime during the live sending tonight or watch it in replay after we're done. Also be sure to jump onto social media and share it on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are at ikya.official. And also, be sure to go to ikya.org and sign up for our newsletter so you can get all the information about IKYA Live and everything else going on. So, without further ado, we're going into I think, a very both heart-wrenching and heart-warming topic. Animals are very close to my heart, and I think close to many people's hearts. And for a lot of us, especially in our spiritual journeys, we may, for example, run into spirit animals. We may have very dear pets or other animal companions in our lives, animals who've shown us a lot of love and wisdom and guidance. And so I think it's very appropriate that when we're looking at sort of the news of the world, that we do look also at the ways in which we relate to and treat animals and other creatures on our planet. So we've had a lot of requests from both online and people here at IKYA Center to talk about animals. And so we're going to open tonight with the question that we actually proposed in this episode, which is, why the hell are we still so primitive in our relationships to animals? IKYA.
And the rules of evolution and why humans are the winners of evolution is because humans are extremely brutal. They're extremely violent. They are extremely cruel. Life is a competition where you try to compete with everybody else and get to the top, and humans won. And you don't win by being nice. You win by killing. You win by exploiting. You win by cruelty. You win by doing absolutely anything you can. And one interesting factor of why humans have won is the combination of the human ability to be extremely cruel and to kill anything without even blinking, combined with an extreme loyalty and empathy towards their own group. And that combination is a winning formula for any life form. It's, we had a conversation today about, like, are aliens really this primitive too? And yes, all life forms that become dominant, no matter where they come from, the rules of evolution are the same. First, you become the most brutal life form on your planet. And that means that you are winning. And then you have to transform, and you have to develop empathy and social intelligence and love and all of that. And humans have not come too far in that movement yet, right? But all life forms, when they first become the dominant life form, they have to transform from brutality and cruelty into empathy and understanding. And if they don't, they will self-destruct, because then the aggression will be turned towards themselves and everything, and they will destroy themselves and their own planet. And in that transformation, normally a life form will destroy themselves. So humans are on that path, right, where we have become the dominant life form, and we continue as if we are the only life form. When we think of the human world, this is our planet, this is our world, and every other life form is just there, but they're not important, right? This way of thinking is exactly what will lead to destruction, and normally does. So when a life form are able to transform and develop empathy and humans have empathy. I will explain this, but it's a very primitive form of empathy yet. And they start listening and they start understanding and they bring their own life form and their own planet into harmony. Then they will be able to develop into highly intelligent beings. So humans are still in that primitive state where they have not developed empathy yet. And why can I say that? It's because it's happened thousands of times before with different cultures, different planets. It's happened millions of times before. And the type of empathy humans have are quite tricky because we believe it's empathy. If we had real empathy, we would not be able to behave in the way we do, being cruel, killing and doing everything we want to, even with other people. The empathy humans have so far is self-serving. Now, it's recognizing when someone can assist you and help you with affirming your own narrative about yourself and assist you in climbing the ladder of hierarchy. So, for instance, you may feel that you want to help the poor and the needy. Why? Because that can affirm your sense of being superior. It can be a display of power, having resources, being a better person than other people. And that is the type of empathy that humans got. And it's smart from a survival standpoint because it's like looking at those people and those beings where you go, oh, I can do this and they will owe me something. I will have power over them. And when you look at human behavior when it comes to empathy, is that it's a manipulation strategy to ensure that you have enough people owing you something, because that's a smart move in the game of survival. So this is the first type of empathy that we develop. It's self-serving, and it should be, because you're still trying to learn how to survive. Now, when you survive, when the life form has survived and become the dominant life form, there's no more competition, right? So you start competing with your own because you don't understand, you've already won, right? So you compete with everyone else. And this is where we're at in our civilization at this point. And that will not stop until humans start developing real empathy, which is the ability to sense others. This is happening especially among people who consider themselves more kind of spiritual. And often what prompts the spiritual search is being able to sense more. And it's painful. You start sensing more than your own body. And for people who have not reached that level, they don't understand what we're talking about, because they think, yeah, you're imagining things, you're just very sensitive and you feel stuff. It's about picking up on information beyond your own body, right? That's the beginning of real empathy. And you start picking up on, other beings and how they feel, their state, their health. For many life forms on this planet, this is normal. Many life forms are able to pick up on other, on the health of humans, for instance. Horses can do that. Cats can do that. Dolphins, there are many life forms that operate with both ultrasound, and they have strategies to be able to map out what's going on in someone else's body. And they can work with telepathy, they can work with many forms of kind of sensing what's going on, because that has helped them in their own survival. So, as we start to wake up, we will sense more, and we'll sense others so we can understand what's going on. And it's not self-serving, right? Because you feel it's overwhelming and you can't really use it for anything, right? It's just there. And that's when it's empathy. When it's not self-serving and when you really can't use it. It's just information. And then you learn to deal with that. And then you start understanding, oh, all right, other beings, they have feelings too. They matter, right? So it doesn't stop with other people, But you start communicating with animals and other life forms, and you recognize, oh, we're all the same. We can all communicate. So a natural part of the awakening process is becoming more kind of sensitive to that. But humans in general have not reached this point, right? It's still part of human evolution to get there. So when you think of humans as still very much caught in this power game, cruelty is how you affirm power. Just look at how humans behave. For instance, until recently, it was completely accepted that bosses, like leaders in business, would behave, terribly towards others, right? Because what's the point of having power if you can't abuse it? So that's been the default. You need to push those boundaries, put people in their places, and enjoy it, right? That's the essence of what happens to people when they have power. They will display cruelty. So like you're fired, right? Projecting fear, unless you do what I want you to do. And I can make you do anything because you really need this job, right? That's how it used to be. We are moving away from that, but in many parts of the world, it's still how it works. And even in relationships, it can be that. Because when a human move into a position of power, they will abuse it. I've seen this also happening with so-called spiritual teachers, right? They start being nice, and then they discover that they can make people do things. And then they can't help themselves because it's too delicious, too attractive, because it's in human DNA. You want to push other people down. You want to inflict pain because that's how you know that you are a survivor. So if you think of evolution, you have the long-term evolution of a life form, but it's also you as an individual climbing the ladder, climbing a hierarchy as far as you can to show that you have the better DNA, right? That's really what's going on. And then you need to fight off the competition. So it's always about trying to pull the ladder up from under you to stop, people coming after you. So you always feel the need to kick those beneath you. That's sensible behavior from a survival point of view. Fighting off competition, winning while you are ahead. So when you feel stronger than someone, it's natural for you and everybody else to feel that you want to, punish those who are weaker than you, less fortunate than yourself. To position yourself in your power, because that is how you can feel, oh, okay, I'm a winner, I have survived. So it's in our DNA. Cruelty is in our DNA. Make no mistake, humans are the most brutal, dangerous life form on this planet. We are empathetic, we are kind and good when it suits us, when we can get something out of it. And therefore it's very selective, right? It's very selective. So, you can be nice to your kids and go out and kill 1 hour after, right? And we justify our own cruelty because it's necessary, because we want to win. So it's in us, and it's in humans collectively. And learning to not be cruel is very difficult. And just look at yourself. If you're being absolutely honest, there are plenty of situations every day when you interact with other people that the impulse is that you should be cruel. And you justify it. Because those are the rules of evolution and competition. So, when humans automatically go corrupt, when having any form of power or position, and feel the need to punish and kick everybody else, it's natural that we look at all other life forms as just disposable. Because we do it with humans too. Remember that slavery in the West ended 160 years ago. That's a few weeks ago, historically. It's very recent. And there are more slaves in the world today than ever. We're still able to treat humans as objects, as non-humans, because it makes products cheaper. And you are willing to look the other way too. We compartmentalize it. Well, it's the economy. So we're basically in animal rights, I often say this, approximately where we were in regard to slavery in the late 1700s, because then we had, discussions were beginning around slaves. It's like, are they humans? Can they think? Are they like us? Are they, because they were considered to be like the missing link, right, between apes and humans. Of course, that was all bullshit, but it was a way to justify having slaves because, they didn't think or feel like us. And when slaves, Africans, then displayed behavior showing that they were able to think and feel just like, white people, they would be punished to try to portray themselves as white people. They were denied education to read and write and to learn skills because it means one would have to look at them as human beings. So they would be punished for that. Remember that slavery is not a white-black thing. There were more than 2 million white slaves in Africa. There were like slaves all over the world. Slavery was normal and is still normal. We are still that life form. And we dehumanize not only slaves, but anybody we don't like. This is why when we look at road rage, people kill other drivers because they get annoyed, they get triggered. We are that life form. And moving out of cruelty, even as a spiritual student, is difficult, right? Because when we get triggered, we can all kill. It's in our DNA. Humans, are the predators, and the worst and most dangerous predators this planet has ever seen. So, treating animals the way we do is a way to affirm our position. And it's so important to create the narrative that, they can't think, they can't feel, they're not like us, because otherwise we can't treat them the way we do. So humans have shown very little interest in actually learning how humans think and feel. It's beginning to change, because now there are more scientists trying to understand how different animals and life forms think and feel and behave. And many life forms, they have the ability to think and feel. Most of them do in different ways. They have a sense of culture and history. They know who they are aware, and they communicate. And if humans cared, they would learn. The reason why animals communicate through telepathy and sensing information and energy, whatever we want to call it, is because that's always been an important part of survival, right? When you don't have language, right, and you can't learn to speak, right? Because to learn to speak, you need a very specific tongue. You need there are certain biological factors that need to be present, and animals don't have that. So what you do instead, you will learn to pick up on subtle signals, right? And you will develop that ability to pick up on more and more and more. And then at some point, you're able to sense information. And most life forms do that. So they can share this enormous kind of pool of information. And one example is you can see, for instance, in a jungle. when there is something approaching, it can be moving very slowly. There's no visible information. You can see this information spreading, and you can see like all the creatures in the jungle will respond. The information is spreading. You have fungi, communicating over vast areas. You have trees communicating over vast areas. And one life form that I find really fascinating are corals. And something that most people are not aware of is that corals, they communicate in a way that one can document today. But for some reason, it is not, this fact alone should make people study them more. Because if you take a coral, like growing in the Pacific somewhere, and they bring it to the other part of the world, they will spawn at the exact same moment. The same type of coral, no matter where they are in the world, will spawn the exact same moment. So, different climates, different time zones, north or south. So it couldn't be, climate in certain seasons. It's the same moment. It can be the same minute. So one knows that they are in communication. We have no idea how. Of course, we know how, but humans don't. But it's that. There is this vast communication going on, and humans are not part of it. So humans are looked upon as these kind of dangerous, harmful beings that can't see or listen. And we believe that we live in our own world, we can do whatever. But it is changing as we're moving closer to real crisis, and that's the trigger for humans to change. It takes crisis. Yes? Yeah. It's the moment we moved away from hunting and gathering.
Oh, wait, I have to ask it again.
Okay?
Sorry about that. I have to ask the question again. I had my microphone muted. So what is the evolutionary strategy humans had in forgetting and, in a way, ignoring communication with all other life forms and beginning to tell that story of being isolated in the world?
The moment humans moved away from hunting and gathering. Now, understand that when you are hunting and gathering, you need to relate to nature. And relate to nature as one, cohesive being, but you also relate to the different life forms because you need to learn how they operate, right? And you need to be able to attract them. You can't necessarily just hunt them down. And as you're aware of, many cultures, they've learned through their spiritual practices and communicating with, the spirit of the animals, but also the collective consciousness of that type of animal, where they sit and they ask to be presented with the animal that they can then kill for food. And that happens, right? You need to learn how to listen because you're gathering. You are in communication with nature. Now, the moment humans started to grow things, they began having these thoughts about themselves. Well, we can control nature. And also it's interesting when you look at the gods that humans invented. Remember that humans have invented more than 6,000 gods, okay? So it's not real. All our definitions of God are simply descriptions of how we relate to what's beyond our understanding, right? That there is divinity, yes, but we don't understand it, so we make it in our image. This is why we need so many of them, right? But when you look at the gods humans had in the faces of hunting and gathering, there were much more nature gods that you were in communication with and that you needed also to kind of satisfy, not only by sacrificing, but also in listening, in being part of nature itself, because you depended on nature to live. Now, as humans began to grow things and gather, and basically build, they became more independent, and then that became the competition. The more stuff, the more independent you were of nature, the more you could show your superiority. So the gods that humans then began to invent were gods that told humans to conquer, to dominate, to use nature, to use animals, and to kill and to go to war. So it started, by humans moving away from hunting and gathering. It's a natural process, but then it just went south from there, right? And now humans are in this complete state of disconnect. And we treat everything like it's disposable, right? And we're so stressed and so full of fear, and we're so full of power games, and we don't even bother, right? We are willing to let other people go through unimaginable sufferings because we want cheap stuff, right? And we don't care. So how we treat animals, we don't care unless it's self-serving. This is why we can have a pet, right? And we'll love that pet. But we don't care if more intelligent animals are then treated terribly because, who cares? It's that selective empathy. Right? So humans are hardwired to operate this way. And I think, when we are on a spiritual path, we have the obligation to try to move beyond this primitive state and then, set the example for others to follow. Yes.
As students of IKYA and spiritual students, it's our duty to try to assist in lifting consciousness and bringing more love and empathy to the world. One of our students, Aki, on YouTube, he asks, a lot of us practice loving animals, perhaps our pets, and then we go to the supermarket and we buy meat from an animal that was killed. And most of us don't have any personal relationship with the animals that we eat. How do we wrestle with that sort of situation, with that conundrum in a way?
I think it's also humans have been so removed from the realities of life that we simply block it out. Remember that the whole ecosystem on this planet is built upon all life forms eating each other. That's what happens. There are very few natural deaths in the animal world. They're all killed and eaten. Right? So ethically, there is nothing wrong with it. It's the cruelty part that is the problem. So eating meat is not a problem. It's the well-being and welfare of animals, that we treat them with dignity and that we respect them, that they actually have lives, and that we should understand what they need. Of course, in a few decades, humans will produce meat and all of that in labs. It's beginning, but that will take over completely. So industrial animals will be a thing of the past. But right now, I think having pets, it's important also because it does open the heart to animal communication and to see that there are beings, thinking, feeling, intelligent beings that we can relate to. Right? So one can see, yes, there is an imbalance there, but at least it is a start.
So somebody on YouTube asks, there seems to be a very marked increase in sort of harmonious interactions between species, not just humans and animals, but also, say, dogs and chickens, or, you know, a cow who's super good friends with, you know, a peacock or something. Is there anything to that? Is that actually increasing, and kind of what's going on?
It is mostly that humans are starting to notice. Because throughout, you know, evolution, there have always been cross-species communication and friendships. But when humans have defined animals as just, you know, moving organisms with no thoughts, emotions, or whatever, how could they have friendships, right? They just operate on instincts, that thing. So when we have observed animal friendships, we have refused to accept what we see and turn it into something else. It's the same thing, you know, when slave owners would watch slaves, they would interpret everything they did based on the fact that they were not fully human. So they did not have emotions and thoughts like real people, right? So no matter what they did, it would be interpreted into that narrative. So we see what we want to see. But the fact that more humans are starting to notice is a good thing, because it means that we're starting to recognize that, oh, right, these are thinking beings. And we can see it also with birds. We can see it with fish. We can see it with insects. They are intelligent beings, but in different ways, because all life forms are specialized, so it means that they have different forms of intelligence. But there have always been a lot of cross-species friendships. And it's wonderful, and it's heart-opening. But humans can't even be friends with themselves, right? And our friendships with animals are solemn friendships. They're very asymmetrical, right? And I just want to, you know, say one thing that I find fascinating is that we watch a show, I'm sure many of you are aware of it. It's called The Dog House. It's a British show. It's about a kind of UK organization that helps dogs find new homes. And what is mind-boggling to me still is how people come in there and they expect the dog to immediately love them and give them attention. And they're so disappointed if they don't. And like, you just see their side little faces, oh, I'm so disappointed because this dog doesn't love me the way I want, like after 10 seconds, and then they just want to try another one. You know, humans are so stupid. It's embarrassing. And these people have the best intentions. They want a friend, they want, you know, a dog, but they want to be loved. And that's the duty. The only purpose of a dog is to love someone else with all their heart from the first minute, right? And it's that. It's so bizarre. And humans think of that as a relationship and a friendship. But the friendship is often based on the premise, love me the way I want you to love me, or else I will punish you or kill you. That is how people treat their parents. Yeah, their parents, you're right. And their pets, but they should treat their parents that way. But the pets, you know, and it's a terrible way of thinking, but many people, if they feel that their pet is not loving them enough, giving them enough attention, they will have them put down. It's absolutely terrible. It's a one-way thing. The friendship is there that the human can be the biggest asshole and display cruelty towards the animal, but the animal is supposed to love them unconditionally. And if not, I will fucking kill you, you bastard, right? And this is the same way of thinking that we find, you know, in the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim faith. If you look at their God, because basically this is the same God in different editions, it's still the same thing. It's that, love me, or you will end up in hell, or I will kill you, I will punish you. And there are plenty of examples in all their scriptures about how God revenged himself because people did not display enough, submission. It's always about the punishment. And you say, oh, it's a loving and forgiving God. No, it's not. It's a hateful God full of vengeance and punishment. And love is that. It's that submission of fear. And they all say that you should fear God. So we've basically just used that way of thinking. Remember that humans make up their religions. So this is just an expression of how humans think and feel. Right? So when they have power and when you feel that you're all powerful, that's what you do. So how humans relate to their pets is just like the Christian God. It's godlike, but not in a good way. Right? So most pets are not happy. And I've seen so many pets that are clearly suffering, that are depressed, and their needs are not being met. And then they're on, oh, I love my dog, you know. And it's terrible. It's torture. And humans don't care because they use their pet as a stuffed animal. And it's a one-way thing. A loving relationship means that it's two-way. And it means that you listen to your partner. Any friendship is about also you listening and trying to accommodate that individual's need. You listen, you understand, and you adapt. You don't want someone to adapt to you. It's an exchange. And most humans are not willing to do that, even with their pets. Their pets are there to affirm that they are lovable. I want someone there for me. Also in that dog show, so many people say that. Right? Maybe there's a reason why people don't want to be there for you. Maybe you're a fucking asshole. And then you want to bring a poor dog into this, forcing that dog to love you. And often what dogs do, they can fear their owners. And they understand what kind of behavior they need to show in order to be accepted and to get food and to not be killed. It's interesting often because like the leaders of this doghouse thing, they often say, and they're quite curious about this because they've seen it and they don't understand why. Seen time and time again, when they have these kind of meets between a dog and a potential owner, often the dog is drawn more to the friend who are just coming along. And they're like, why does this happen? And it's so obvious. It's because this person who wants it comes in with the expectation of meeting someone who will love them immediately or else. And their energy is, I want to own you and I will force you to love me forever. Right? And the other person is there to show support, right? Wants to support that person and they're therefore giving of themselves. And they don't want anything because they're not getting a dog, they're just there. So they're just there and they're giving and they have a relaxed energy. Of course the dog is attracted to that because that person is not a threat. Often the person who wants a dog is a threat. You know, imagine if someone came to your house. You open the door and the person said, I want us to be together. You need to love me immediately and submit to me or else I don't know what I will do. And I want to be with you forever and ever and you will love me every day no matter what I do. Come here, I want to hold you. Why? You would not be attracted to that. And this is how humans behave when they want to get a pet. It's disgusting, but humans are not more advanced than that. And remember, these are the good people, right? People want to are normally the good people. They have love in them, but we just need to, acknowledge that humans are not very advanced yet when it comes to empathy, when it comes to understanding anything beyond self-interest. Humans don't even understand their own self-interest. They're not able to take care of themselves, right? Most humans display self-destructive behavior. So we can't even take care of ourselves, right? All other life forms on this planet is looking at humans like, what? They're blind and deaf and do weird stuff and they harm everyone. Like, who are these people, you know? And yes, animals will communicate with each other. Plants, insects, you know, birds, animals, whatever, they can all communicate. Not like they sit down and have discussions, but there is exchange of information and energy. And they all use that to navigate. Humans are excluded from that yet. But hopefully, you know, you as a spiritual student, you're beginning to listen. And many of you probably have also had experiences of communicating with trees and, you know, insects and all sorts of life when you recognize that, yeah, I'm not imagining this. I can sense this in a two-way communication because it's real. So we have to be better examples because, you know, humans are not very impressive when it comes to this yet, right? Mm-hmm.
First, we have a question from YouTube, and a little preface that many of you know that we have 3 dogs, IKYA does, and that those dogs get a lot of freedom to be themselves and to express because of the way that he's able to communicate with them. They also get a lot of freedom because I'm lazy and I don't train them to do anything, so they get to just be themselves. But on YouTube, Aki asks a really interesting question. What is it that animals are learning by incarnating with us? We always talk about what we're learning from animals, but what are they learning from being with us?
Fear. Not only that, but remember that when you are able to establish a relationship with a less advanced life form, they have the opportunity to grow because they are then in a space that operates on a higher level, hopefully in a higher energy. Because each level of evolution has its own space in a way. It's a classroom, right? So it's like taking someone from kindergarten to university. That can be very inspiring. And some things will be complete, you know, above the understanding of the animal, but at the same time, they may learn a lot and develop faster. And I've seen with so many animals, you know, when they interact with me over time, they become more articulate in how they think, how they express themselves, because there's a point to doing that. There is somebody listening. You know, for instance, their example, like our smallest one, Sinbad, he can basically feel me all the time, and he is aware that we're communicating all the time. So they don't have to be physically near me. But I've seen sometimes, because, you know, he's a spoiled little king, so he's used to just like giving instructions and then it will appear, right? So he always is in that communication, has become more and more articulate. But sometimes it's so funny when it happens because I can be in one part of the house and he's in another part, and then you hear wanting something, but it's okay, maybe it's not time for that snacky right now. And then he just like comes to me, like, see if it's a bedroom. He comes out of the bedroom and he just like peeks around the corner. It's like, but is the intercom not working? Like, hello, you know, it's like he's just checking that, like, is everything okay? I gave my order a while ago, like, what's happening? And, you know, then I have to explain to him that this can't happen. Or then it kind of goes back to his business. But animals are used to this, right? And everyone can be trained, even humans. You know, because it's the same process as learning kind of to listen intuitively, right? And imagining, that's how you start. Imagine what the energy means. When you feel that you're receiving something, just use your intuition, use your imagination, like what could this be, and just play around with it. And over time, it will get more crystallized. And for animals, it's the same process. So when they know someone is listening, they will try to express themselves more clearly when they understand that when they do, it will bring them results. They need to be incentivized. It's the same thing with most pets. Because humans are not listening, they give up. They completely, just like, you know, with slaves. Think of it, if you were treated like an idiot, but nobody ever listened to you, didn't care about what you said, what you needed, just like you were basically non-existing individual, you would give up. And you would get dumber. You would stop even listening to your own emotions and needs, because what's the point? Nobody would listen. No one would allow you to do anything. So most pets give up, you know, and I see so often when I meet a dog or a cat or whatever it is, that they have given up and there's almost nobody home. And I will then have to first ignite them and say, like, hello, I'm here, I can actually hear you. And then, you know, they can feel and see that they can actually express themselves. And with some animals, it's like when they open up, they never stop, because it's like they have so much to say and they haven't talked with anyone for a very long time, because many pets are kept in isolation. They're kept in isolation and then it's snuggle time, you know. So a lot of animals have a lot to share and to tell, but they're so frustrated that nobody can listen to them, right? And the same thing is sometimes also with it could be livestock, horses, whatever it is, that they can be so fascinated that I can talk with them for real. For me, it's not intuitive. I can have real conversations because I understand exactly what they're thinking and feeling. So they start to respond to that very quickly, and often animals are really fascinated that a human can talk. It's because that is often the reaction. They're used to being able to exchange information with other animals and beings, but that a human can speak, that's rare. Mm-hmm.
We have a question from Lena here in the audience.
Yes, I used to have a dog that was he wasn't very pleasing in the affectionate way. Was it because he had kind of given up, or was it because he saw through the game and didn't want to be part of it?
I think in that case, it was because, you know, he was an old school gentleman, right? He wasn't that kind of guy. So just like you see those, you know, cliche, you know, men kind of, you know, living off grid, not talking to anyone because they're real men, right? That thing, they're not too affectionate and they like alone time and like to be alone with their own thoughts, and that he was that kind of individual. So it was natural for him to not be affectionate, but he would show it in different ways. Just like these men, they're not good at displaying emotions, but they will show it through how they take care of you, right? Because they find their own language. So it's important to also with humans that we have different languages, right? And men often communicate their emotions and thoughts in a different way from women. So men can sit together and be quiet and talk about absolutely nothing and then be quiet, and they share a lot of emotional energy. So men are more advanced when it comes to that kind of connection than women are. And it's because men for longer, like in an evolutionary way, had to relate to nature. They had to listen because they were still hunting and gathering as women were developing society. So women became better at like oral communication, and men still kept more of that intuitive sharing of energy. And also when men were both hunting and going to war together, they would have to be quiet but still be able to communicate, right? So men would sense more. And that would then remain part of the male brain. It's not that it developed, it was always there, but women moved in a different direction, developed more kind of social intelligence. So this is also why men do not always have to talk so much. They have different ways of communicating the energy, and they can be extremely emotional, but they will not necessarily talk about it. And a man can sit there and they will understand exactly, but they've not talked about it at all. So men can go together, like they can fish and be quiet for hours, and they really talked about everything without a word, right? And so it's also for women to understand this part of the male psychology, the male brain, because it's slightly different from the ones of women. And kind of your dog, he was more that type of man.
Okay, Leader on YouTube shares the perspective that this development we have towards synthetic meat seems to not be such a good idea, and then asks the question, is there some time to change course away from synthetic meat toward more global holistic farming? And Aki adds, if we do this synthetic meat, will the animals that we've normally eaten sort of die out?
Yeah, remember that synthetic meat, whatever you want to call it, lab meat, it's just in the very beginning. It will take over, and farm animals will disappear. Yes. So the animals will still exist, but as pets and as part of how humans learn to take care of this planet, right? And it will take for humans to stop eating animals before they relate to all animals the way they relate to their pets, but hopefully better, right? Seeing that the beauty in nature is valuable in and of itself. It's not based on how, like what we can get out of it. It's what we can give, right? And this is the transformation in the human consciousness that we have to go through or go extinct, right? We need to start focusing on what can we give. When you look at human leaders today, they get to the top because it's all about what can I get? How much can I suck out of this business or people or the market? It's always about getting more. This is why leaders today are all corrupt and they just want more money, more stuff, more everything, right? And it's not about giving. It's not part of their mindset. And they represent the collective consciousness. So humans will have to grow into a state where it's about how much we can give. And as you know, in any relationship where there is love, all you care about is how much you can give, right? If you have a partner you love, it's about how much you can give. The same thing with a pet or other beings that you have in your life. The only purpose you see for them to be in your life is for you to give to them. It's not what you can get out of it. Right? And when you also start giving more to life around you, give to everyone, when humans reach that level, humans will restore this planet and it will become beautiful again. Life forms will thrive because humans, when you look at how much humans are able to create, and it's all about what's in it for me, right? That is the premise of our civilization, and we're all in on it. If that switches and the focus is how much can we give? How much can we heal? Some of you are kind of in that consciousness already, or you are kind of transitioning into it. But when humans collectively at some point get to that level, there is no end to what humans can do to restore and heal and to give all life forms their best life, right? And, you know, where I live, I invite all kind of life forms, and especially, you know, spiders have always been very attracted to me because they think I'm a spider. And it's because they're extremely vibrational, right? So they like beings that are more kind of vibrational. They feel very at ease with that. Because remember, like when they spin their huge nets, it's all about vibration and sound. So also who they are as life forms and beings, they're very tuned into vibration information. So they're attracted to my presence because that's basically what I am and what I do, but in a larger scale. So they feel that I can basically mother them. So they're everywhere. And it's just loving all life equally and give as much as we can always, right? And at least when you have a pet, make them the center of attention, give to them, nurture them, grow out of what they can give you. See it as a spiritual practice. To say, how much can you give? How much can you listen? How much can you learn from another life form about how they operate? All life forms have their own ways of thinking and feeling and even constructing sentences. Still, it's accepted that primates in captivity, when they're trained, they can form sentences. Dogs can do it. All life forms can form sentences, but they do it in different ways. And it's fascinating to see, based on how they express themselves, the thought process. And I've mentioned this before as an example, but one of our dogs who passed away about a year ago, he would also always express himself in present tense. It would just always describe that things are happening. And he knew that this had the power of manifestation. So if he wanted something to happen, he would express that it is happening. Just like an affirmation, because if we work with affirmations, you've learned that's what you do, you know? Money comes easily to me, right? It's that kind of thing. And he would basically explain, I am eating a sausage now, and he would look at me, right? Because he understood. So, and also the way how he would construct in a sentence based on how his brain works, right? It's fascinating. So try to go beyond the intuitive part and try to learn the language. Try to, again, be a friend, which means that it's equal, on equal terms, and to let someone express him or herself based on who they are and see it as your job, because you have placed them in a human environment, to let them express themselves naturally as much as possible so they can be everything they can be. And see yourself as the facilitator of their growth process, not as your owner, as the owner, that you want something. Always ask what they want, how you can assist them in achieving maximum growth.
Martina in Germany, she wonders, are there any real alternatives yet to testing medicine and cosmetics and things on animals? If so, how and when will it come, and how can we as spiritual students contribute to that evolution?
Yes, of course, there is a limit to how much mascara a bunny needs. And luckily, we are moving away from animal testing, because now we're getting software and artificial intelligence that can pretty much predict what will happen, and that's in use already. So animal testing is already on its way down. Because this is also a terrible form of cruelty. And we justified, but what's the alternative? It's making things in a very different way and say, if we have to then test it on animals, we shouldn't be doing it, right? But we are getting to that point very slowly, but computers have gotten so much better. And so a lot of testing today are done kind of virtually and through algorithms and different models, and it's working. But it's also because one has a body of kind of documentation and evidence coming from animal testing. So one can kind of build on that. So this is happening. So it's moving in the right direction. So it's basically technology that will make us go beyond this, because this is also a terrible practice.
So IKYA shares a really nice reflection that might be a good conclusionary point if you see it that way. He says that, I see that the perceptualization course that you taught IKYA has really helped me a lot to communicate with animals and plants and all life forms. But I also see that I communicate so much better with humans too. And especially seeing that the words people say are often lies or half-truths, and their energy is telling a totally different story. So I can relate to and pick up on what people send out unconsciously from their thoughts and emotions. And by that, I can have a more honest and correct communication. Hint, hint, especially with his fiancée. So,
yes, I think human communication, because remember, humans are hierarchical beings. They are in a competition of evolution. It means that you should be lying and cheating and stealing and stabbing and killing and doing all of that, which means it's the natural default for a human is to be dishonest. Because by being honest, you show vulnerability. So humans lie even when they don't have to, because that's the kind of safer way to go. It takes for someone to achieve, inner peace and to move beyond survival, to become honest. This is also why we can, in a way, look at our own process. Our level of honesty, I often say this, it's not how far we've come or how far we think we've come spiritually. It's our level of honesty. Because that's what is the real kind of display of consciousness. So when you learn to be honest, I mean like for real, not just when it suits you, but it's first and foremost being honest towards yourself. Most people lie to themselves continuously and they can't stop. Because it's how we can live with ourselves, basically. So learn to be honest for real and seek honesty. That is also how we improve our skills of communication. Right? Because as long as we're self-serving, we lie. We lie because we feel that is helping us somehow. Right? It's cheating, but we win. So it's self-serving is when we want to win the competition. Right? So as long as we are in that state where we want to survive and we're self-serving, we will lie. So the communication is thereby manipulation. It's trying to sell yourself in such a way that you can force the world to give you the confirmation you want so that you may cheat your way up the ladder. That's the primary focus in your brain when it comes to all communication. Is like, how can it make me look better? It's a subconscious thought, but it's in there and you can't get rid of it. So reaching honesty in yourself for real, that is also where you start. Because then you can have communication that is not self-serving. Right? You need to go beyond that game. Because then, only then are you willing to listen. I've said so many times that when it comes to human communication, nobody truly listens. All humans are in continuous monologues. They just wait for everybody to get quiet so I can say my bit. Think when you are in a discussion with someone, are you really listening? Because you know what they're going to say. That's wrong anyway. So you would want to say yours because you have the truth. You need to correct everything, right? It's always about positioning yourself. True communication is listening. It's the opposite. When it's self-serving, it's basically trying to manipulate the world. And this is why humans are not good listeners yet. And to communicate truly and spiritually, you need to listen because that's what you emphasize when you're in a process of awakening, when you are in a state of love, and when you want to give. It's not about expressing yourself. It's about listening to what is needed. to get a better understanding so that what you give will heal. So what you give will promote growth in the receiver. So you want to listen, you're interested for real. And it's not about selling yourself at all. In not only the animal world, but in part of nature that humans are not part in, this is what communication is. This is what friendships are. It's just that sharing of who you are, sharing information, sharing whatever is making you feel good and uplifting, and how you can assist each other. Humans have that too. We have it in us, but we're just very selective. But learning to listen for real and being honest in your listening and being honest with your intention, that is where you start. That is where you start understanding other life forms, because then you want them to come forward. And your communication is showing that interest, holding space, and letting someone show themselves and their needs and where they are at so you can give. The farther you go on the journey of awakening, this is where your communication is heading. And for many of you, you may have noticed a shift in you over the years, that you're less interested in talking about your stuff, and it's more interesting to listen, and to truly listen and to go beyond what's being said. Because often, yes, people will lie and they're dishonest because they're still in that game of power and survival, and they don't know about anything else. But when you listen past it, you can listen to their true point of evolution, to their true needs. Because listening is not just taking in what's being said. It's listening to the vibration, information, and go deeper. And this is what you do also when you communicate with animals. That's how all life forms communicate. And you learn to be truthful. Now, back to aliens and the stuff, when humans, in some of these programs where they interact with aliens, try to learn how to communicate, this is where their minds explode. Because often these life forms, they're very factual. And there are no games. It's just, this is what is. And humans have so many filters and so many everything that they can't take it. And it takes a long time for humans to get to that level of clarity and honesty where they can actively listen. So this is what we need to do in ourselves. So are you listening to the world around you? Because for most humans, it's just there, and we just walk past it and we don't care. Right? Then you are in the self-interest consciousness. Listening, meaning that you really don't care about yourself in the situation. You care about being part of life and taking it in and being in that exchange and loving everything. And seeing the point of communication that you can understand better how to give. Start with your family. Start with your pets. Start with your plants. Because, just like we do with pets, we do the same thing with plants. Unless you're beautiful the way I want you to, I will kill you. They're affected by that. We should see their beauty and say, what can I do for you so you can become everything you can possibly be? You can do that with flies, you can do it with insects, with spiders, with birds, with fish, with absolutely any life form. Be in an energy of service. Show that you want to give love and that it's honest. That it's not this human self-serving empathy that, ooh, I want to give love so I can show how spiritual I am, and you will love me and respect me because I'm so important. Like, nah, just try to go out of it, right? And just go into that true state of love where you recognize that we are all the same. So by loving, you are also receiving. You're listening, and then you adapt to that because you know that, yeah, if you are the more intelligent being present, you should act like it, which means you have more responsibility. You should facilitate. And again, see yourself as a facilitator of everyone around you. You should facilitate their growth and healing by being in a state where you actively want to give love. And you want to give it so much that you're just looking for opportunities. And it's not about you. It's about recognizing that we're all the same. We're all on the same journey. And it's also important because we as kind of spiritual travelers, we need to set the example, right? We are a step ahead. And it means we are basically deciding where the trail goes. And the trail will turn into a road, and the road will turn into a motorway. But it starts by the trail, and that's our job. So anyone in the process of spiritual awakening, we are deciding the fate of this planet by what we do, our practices, because our consciousness is ahead, so that will be the spearhead. So do not be satisfied by you just behaving like a human. Please don't behave like human when it comes to this. It's cringy, you know? Behave like a being of love. Try to grow into it. I know it's difficult if we're being honest. We have to challenge ourselves every day. Because what you vibrate, your level of honesty, how you treat all life matters. It is part of building the trail, deciding where this collective consciousness over time will move. So please take that responsibility seriously and learn to treat absolutely all life with respect and love and listen and give as much love as you possibly can every moment, every day, unconditionally.
Thank you, IKYA. That's beautiful. And thank you, everybody, both here in the studio audience and out there in YouTube, for joining us tonight. And a special big thanks to Aki, our media expert, all the way in Finland, remotely supporting me and being able to run IKYA Live right here at our central station tonight. So, again, this was IKYA Live, world news from the spiritual perspective, and the only news program in the world, as we did tonight, giving you practical spiritual advice for your everyday life. And really, this discussion lifts the world if we share it, if we bring it out to other people, if we help them to see the world around them differently. So please subscribe to IKYA.official here on YouTube and like this video and share it on to others. Also, follow and share our social media, IKYA.official at Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to go to IKYA.org and sign up for our newsletter if you haven't, because that's where we send out the most information. And IKYA Aligned Crystal Healing Collection 3, our newest spiritual study for 1 year. It's the deepest course that we offer and the most intense and beautiful spiritual study. It is starting on the 21st of June, but you can join us for a free open house on the 31st of May at 6 o'clock Oslo time, both here at the center and online. So please be sure to do that. Interact with IKYA, ask questions, and learn about this spiritual study for your own journey. So again, a big thank you to all of you from all of us here at IKYA Center. We look forward to seeing you next week on Monday at 7 o'clock Oslo time for IKYA Live to dive into the gender wars, another juicy world news topic. Until then, thank you, and we'll see you next Monday.